Thank you, Joel.
Hey, fans of the Monday Movie Club, shut up, you bitches. We started. Jeez. All right, this week we're going back to 1998 and Edward Norton in American History X, which was chosen by Mark. We were supposed to watch it last year, but I changed. It is number 1152 on the Franken list. So not one of the 1001 movies I need to watch before I die. So you made me watch one movie too many. I'm Frank Gaffney. With us as always is Joel. Morning, Joel.
Good morning.
We're trying to perk Joel up this morning. Amy, Goldfuck, and Cringer.
Sure.
That's Michael and King in the kitchen. Where are
Dining room, kitchen, and back of me.
With the candlestick?
With the chopstick, Joel, with the chopstick.
Oh, sorry.
I think that might be racist.
A little racist.
Okay. All right, here's the plot of this movie. Living a life marked by violence, neo-Nazi Derek, played by Edward Norton, finally goes to prison after killing 2 black youths.
What is a youth?
Upon his release, he vows... What's a youth? Upon his release, he vows to change, and now he hopes to prevent his brother, played by a perfectly cast Edward Furlong, who idolizes Derek, from following in his footsteps. Firstly, Edward Norton is jacked. And he is totally sexy and revolting all at the same time.
Sex volting?
But I was sex volting. He was. So I was making notes as I went along watching it. And I found the soaring musical score during the basketball game kind of odd when they won. It seemed like it made it so I don't know, that they beat these black kids at basketball. It was such an event. It was like, the music seemed a little
it wanted you to
incongruous.
Yeah, we were supposed to feel what they felt, of course.
Yeah, but it seemed incongruous to me. And then, oh my God, Ethan Supple singing "The White Man Marches On."
Oh my God.
Screaming it, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You mean Ethan?
And he was...
Suplee, yeah.
Suplee, it says Supple.
It's Suplee.
He was not Supple.
And he was such a sweetheart. And My Name is Earl. And here he is, a very gross Seth. And poor Edward Furlong. Was this where he went off the rails after this movie?
Probably.
Yeah, but well, I'll talk about it later. But I thought he did a very good job in this movie.
Oh my God! But I think he took this movie a little too seriously. And Stacy Keach as the sinister neo-Nazi ringleader who had a taste for molding young boys. And it was so funny when he was saying how that the internet has become vital in the spread of propaganda. I'm like, hello, welcome to 2023. And but other performances were just stereotypical, like Avery Brooks as the principal. No principal cares that much, especially not a black principal for a neo-Nazi. Good Lord. And he says, he learned this nonsense, Murray, and he can unlearn it. I will not give up on this child. I was like, oh, good. And Elliot Gould, who plays the Jewish suitor, whose presence at dinner with Derek's mother, sent him into that frenzy. And neither of those characters were fleshed out enough for me. And Elliot Gould is a terrible actor. Oh my God, I didn't believe in one word he said.
However, he is a national treasure.
See Beverly. Well, let's bury him. And it was good to see Beverly D'Angelo, but she wasn't doing very well after this either. Okay. So the film has sections that are in black and white. That's his neo-Nazi heyday.
The flashbacks are in black and white.
Yeah, well, when he was a neo-Nazi. And then the colored parts are prison and the current day. So
we just watched Maestro last night. Was that the same issue?
Same
Yes, exactly.
I said we just watched Maestro last night. Is that the same issue? Half in
Oh.
black and white, half in
Exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was a neo-Nazi during the first part. And so the contrast between the scenes are really to deflect the unlikeness of Derek's about face, because while he was in prison, he decides he doesn't want to be a neo-Nazi anymore. I found that very hard to buy into. It was like night and day. But there are some great moments in the movie, and I love how the cinematography made Venice look like the apocalypse.
Right.
It was like, okay. And certainly there are some really good performances, even great. And that's what makes the movie as good as it is. But I kept wanting it to be more, something more. Like it would get like a higher plan. And like it might have been if it were a more interesting director. Oliver Stone, Martin Scorsese, or even, hear me out now, Spike Lee. It would have been very interesting, I think, to see one of them tackle this. So for me, it never quite soars. And it's too pat. And there were so many, it seemed like they had so many topics they wanted to get out there that some of them seemed very rushed to me so they could cover every single issue on the subject. And the one part that was way too rushed for me was Derek in prison. I mean, at first he kind of fits in because he has the swastika, but then he doesn't really appreciate that everybody has a gentleman's agreement. Is that what I mean? That they all can coexist. So he didn't like all the cooperation, but I just didn't see the turning point. Did I miss it?
Yes.
Yeah.
My view is that he was the biggest believer of white supremacy, and he saw the hypocrisy, and everyone else, the other white guys, were not as big. And at the end of the day, he got raped by the white guys, and he was befriended by a black guy in the laundry.
Yeah, but it wasn't just that. It was also he saw that, they were dealing drugs, they were buying drugs from people they supposedly hated to sell them back to their own people. And that's where the hypocrisy comes in and completely disillusioned him.
And then you add in Sweeney coming to visit him and counsel him, and he said it to him. He said, "Yeah, I'm seeing some holes in it," whatever he said. But yeah, I thought it was very believable.
I still didn't. I didn't feel it. And so when we and there's good scenes, some very powerful scenes, but like I said, I just felt it just lacked a unifying vision. And rather than going to a higher goal, it only has a plot. And the movie seems to even lose faith in itself. And that ending was such a cheap twist for me when it could have been a more thought-provoking conclusion. So I read somewhere that the British director, Tony Kaye, wanted his name removed from the movie because he felt it needed more work, and that Edward Norton was too much of a pain in the ass and edited the movie himself.
Yes,
he has a history of doing that.
He does have a history of doing that, but that's not entirely exactly what happened. There's faults on both sides of this equation from what I have read over the years and understand. That Tony Kaye turned in his cut of the film, which is actually 20 minutes shorter than the film that was released. And the studio was like, okay, we want some other stuff back in. And they argued about that for a while, and they basically turned it over to Norton and said, hey, because he was on the studio side, he wanted more of his performance to be in the film. Tony Kaye,
his Oscar-nominated performance.
Yes, yeah. So Tony Kaye got pissed off and did a lot of weird things before he got to the point where he wanted his name either taken off or changed so that it was a pseudonym. But
yeah, it's a Humpty Dumpty.
Yep.
Wait. So can you explain some of the weird things that he did? Because I have no idea of any of this.
He had a meeting with the studio executives at one point where he brought a priest, a rabbi, and somebody else. I forget.
I think
maybe
it was a Buddhist
Buddhist
monk.
monk, yeah, to help keep things zen during the meeting.
Did they walk into the bar?
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously.
probably. He would, when they would give him the time to say, all right, you want to keep editing this, we need it by this date, here's another 3 weeks, fix it the way more towards what we'd like, but with your sensibilities. And he would be like, okay, well, I'm not going to make it, so I need another few weeks. And he pissed them off, which is rightfully so.
I see. Maybe Tony Kaye needs to do a director's cut now.
Well, that's I was
25 years later.
When it got to be my turn, I was going to talk a little bit about that concept. That they're
Well, go right ahead.
okay.
Well, you can.
The work print of his film still exists. Of his cut of the film still exists. I don't know that anybody's seen it or how accessible it is to do a director's cut. I'm surprised that there hasn't been one at this point. A little bit surprised, only because it was and it still is an important film. It's still used as a treatise to help people who are, skinheads and white nationalists, to kind of help them get away from it. They use it in.
No, I think those people are watching the movie and watching the black and white section and going, yeah, that's right.
But if you think about it, back then that movement looked like the way they did to stand out so that people would know who they are. They've changed tactics at this point.
Now they're all Trumpers.
Well, not just all Trumpers, but they don't shave their heads. They're not wearing leather and metal and stuff like that. They look like your next door neighbor, so that they're more hidden,
with the American flag hanging off the house.
Exactly. So, it's still an important film in that sense. But again, getting back to the director's cut aspect, the fact that it exists somewhere out there, and New Line Cinema has had a relationship with the Criterion Collection, I'm surprised they haven't tackled it, because they tackle things like that constantly.
And the 25th anniversary would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Are they just too afraid to release it now? And all the dialogue?
They usually don't fall into that type of category. They let me put it this way. They released Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet within a month after the actors who played Romeo and Juliet started complaining about how they were,
but that was already in process before.
Yeah, but still, but people have pulled stuff for lesser reasons. Yeah. So I don't, I'm just surprised at that. And then part of it may be that nobody wants to talk about the film. Tony Kaye, if you look at his career, went nowhere.
Is he still alive?
He's still alive. He actually is apparently, he's been shopping around a sequel to this film called American History Y, with with Djimon Hounsou.
Comes after X.
So,
comes after X. Y.
So who knows if
he's going to spell it WHY.
Right? Yeah. No, it's a Y. But he, he's, if you look at his credits, he's got 3 other movies, one of which was never released, one of which was a documentary. So he kind of went nowhere. And Edward Norton
directed by
Edward Norton's a royal pain in the ass. So
Joe, you might as well finish the rest of it.
The only thing I'll say though is that, at least for a movie that tackles racism, this compared to Crash that we watched a year or 2 ago, to me this was much, much better.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My eyebrow. Okay. Well, Joel, you might as well finish. Go ahead.
Okay. What was I saying?
Your thoughts on the film?
Oh, my thoughts on the film. I
went on the tirade over here.
Director's cut aside.
You obviously think it's an important film.
It's, well, to an extent it is. I'm not saying it's the most important movie ever made. It's a good film. It's got a lot to it that does work that I think is important. I mean, it's important enough that we're still dealing with this crap. There was a quote I read from somebody that was essentially, I like the fact that we're still talking about this film years later, but I hate the fact that we're still talking about this film years later. It is very timely based on a lot of stuff that's going on these days. Hopefully, eventually, it won't be. I don't mind Avery Brooks because he's doing exactly what I expect him to do. I think yes, I was jokingly referring to this at one point as it's Deep Space Nine meets Boy Meets World. Because of the cast involved. Because you've got the father from Boy Meets World plays their father in the flashback scene, and Ethan Suplee was a bully on the show for a couple of seasons, and you've got both Captain Sisko and Kes from Voyager, so in the film. But there's some really strong performances. I think for the most part, it's well made. I like the cross-cutting between the flashback scenes in black and white and the more timely or modern day as it was set then scenes in color. The film moves for like the first half. It really, the first hour does not feel like an hour. It moves very quickly, and then it starts to slow down and bog down a little bit after that. It's not perfect.
That's probably all the stuff that Ed Norton put back in.
Probably.
Like all of the extreme slow motion scenes that went on and on.
Wasn't Tony Kaye from commercials and stuff he did before this?
Yes.
So I mean, I could definitely see that kind of editing in the sequences, in the supermarket and at the dinner with Elliot Gould, that kind of quick commercial cuts.
Yeah, and those scenes, for the most part, worked really well and kept things moving.
Very effective. Very effective. Yeah.
But it does get slow and bogged down. At the end of the day, I've seen this movie a couple of times. I think I would love to see Tony Kaye's cut of the film at some point. I don't know how better the film would have been under any of those directors you've mentioned. I mean, Spike Lee's tackled the subject so many times that it's kind of, I don't want to say it's irrelevant because he does it well every time, but it kind of becomes redundant for him. Scorsese is Scorsese, and Oliver Stone's just a nut job at this point. So
but at least he's a nut job with a vision.
Sure. Well, but that's not to say that Tony Kaye didn't have a vision. He did. It was just yanked out from under him and superseded by Edward Norton and New Line Cinema. So
didn't Edward Norton redo Hulk as well?
Yes. He literally was rewriting pages. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why he was recast. So
Joel, what was your
I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I think it's one of those films that there is some import to it. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next decade or so it winds up in the National Film Registry. But that's it.
Frank,
all right, so for me, I didn't
you're gonna say exactly what I said. You didn't give your stars.
Yeah, I know. So and right, so the studio asked Ed Norton to step in, and I think again, for me, it's about trying to cover too much ground and then rushing to that very conventional conclusion. I'm giving it a 2.5. I'm not rating it higher again because I just feel like it should have had loftier goals. And it's definitely a terrifying look at the lack of humanity and hatred. But for me, the film is flawed but fascinating. And again, I do have the nagging suspicion that some people are watching this movie as a tutorial. It's a training film for them. And while, they're agreeing wholeheartedly with the sentiments of those black and white violent sections, and I feel like, do we really need to inspire these idiots? It's so hard for me. I couldn't watch Dahmer because I'm like, why are we giving 8 hours to this maniac? And then people are going to think, oh, I could do that and I could get away with it. So for me, it's a very tough thing to have to watch. Aim, did you feel the same way?
Not nearly as strongly as you did, because I just take it for, it's a movie and I'm gonna either enjoy it or not. And I did enjoy it. I saw it in the theaters because it was a big Oscar buzz movie. So I definitely remember seeing it. And of course, we all remember the curb scene. I over the years I could never remember which movie that was from, and I've always thought it was Boys in the Hood. I was like, oh, did they steal this from Boys in the Hood?
Nope.
But my God, what a scene. And also the scene in the grocery store was just unbelievable. But I also don't think a scene like that would go on as long in real life. The cops would have been there within minutes. I'm sorry, no matter what.
Well, it was slow motion. That's why.
Fucking
Yeah,
slow.
that's right.
But it was that and the dinner table flashback were just so powerful.
But that's one of the moments where I thought Ed Norton had so many speeches in that moment where he had to talk about Rodney King and talk about. I'm like, oh, we get it. Why do we don't need to go over every single instance?
Yeah, I get that. I understand that. And it was so bizarre in the opening scene when his front door opened out. I'm like, why would they choose to have your front door open out? That doesn't happen in real life ever. So that was weird. But anyway, I do agree with Frank that I did find it all so very packed, very convenient. And also, when Danny says in the voiceover how wonderful we're all together and it feels so good, something bad is going to happen. I hate that trope.
Oh my God, you knew something bad would happen when he dropped him off at school and they had that elongated goodbye. I'm like, you're just dropping him off. Shut up.
Right.
Something bad was going to happen at the opening credits.
Wow.
That type of movie, something's going to happen over the course of the film several times.
Right.
And then, of course, the annoying thing, that kid is narrating it and he's dead. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're
So
hearing
him
his book.
Read the letter. I get it, reading that letter, but
Yeah.
But then it leads you to believe he's still alive.
Sure, that's the big
maybe he handed it in before he died, so he's actually reading it before he's dead, and you're hearing it.
Right. He's reading it as he's typing it.
Never handed
All right,
it in.
wait a minute. I'm sorry. Spoiler alert.
The only other thing is that, like I said, I agreed that it was so pat. This would never happen. And they even showed him being turned by his dad, so he really wasn't like that. I don't want to say he wasn't born that way, obviously.
But that horrendous wig Ed Norton wore in those scenes. Good Lord.
I know.
Horrendous.
But I then read, and I think I've actually seen this guy on Dr. Phil. It was based on a real guy who really was a raging neo-Nazi, went to jail, and did a complete 180. So it does happen. But doing it for a movie, to me, just made it way too pat, to use that word again. And to me, it doesn't work as a movie. In real life, it's like, wow, that's incredible. Now he does tours and everything and TV. It just doesn't work for me as a movie. But I do enjoy the movie, so I'm still going to give it 3.
It's funny though, because I did think that showing the father teaching him what he learned, I thought it made sense. It helped make more
Absolutely,
sense.
because you got to
somewhere
understand where he got it from.
I think it was Oscar Hammerstein who said, "You've got to be carefully taught."
Right.
Annie, had you seen this before?
No, it's definitely not my type of thing at all. I'm never gonna unseen the sidewalk scene, which I hate you for. So thank you very much. There are just some scenes that I'll never unsee. So I think
even though you didn't go like this.
No.
Did you know it was coming?
Well, when he started to make him kneel down, I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. But I just thought he was gonna shoot him, but it was a little bit worse than that.
Yeah, would have been nicer for us.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that, like, with this type of movie is that, like, Joel, by the way, I love it when Joel goes first because I have so much less to say. But like Joel said, it's relevant, and that's sad to me that it's still relevant 25 years later, that we just never seem to change. And you can make all these movies and, you know, all these relevant, all these movies that, you know, talk about the topic and stuff, and yet nothing ever changes. So to me, it's just, I don't want to see it anymore. I maybe if it was a fabulous movie, but it's just, you know, done over and over again. And I'm tired of that. Nothing gets changed. And yeah, I get it. Like with that flashback scene and the dad and stuff. So is it just always gonna keep going? It just seems worse even nowadays, you know, with
The
everything
thing
going
that
on.
I think the thing that did come out of it is the PC police. So they're watchdogs pointing to these horrible things.
Yeah, I mean, and
Still doesn't help.
it doesn't, and they're even more, yes, so I get that, like, you know, so they blend in more, but it's even more out there these days with like the
Proud Boys.
protests and the Palestinians, and you know,
Right.
like
Convoys, yeah.
it's even more in your face, you know, so
Unfortunately, something happened a few years ago, and the cockroaches realized that the rock was no longer on top of them, and
100%.
just scuttle all over the place. And once that Pandora's box was opened, they ain't going back in.
Yeah.
Well, that was a beautiful analogy, Joel.
Thank you.
Cockroaches realized the rock was no longer on them.
yeah. So I thought there were parts that were really good, you know. I didn't feel like that last scene, they really didn't explain it as much. Like, yeah, we saw the conflict in the bathroom, you know, but I don't feel like it should have gotten to that point. Like,
Right. How did it get to the point where he shot him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't see there's that side of the story, that, you know, what
Right.
was that kid going through that made him get
yeah,
to that point with Edward Furlong.
His
Yeah.
older brother was a gangbanger, and so it's same thing. It you learn from your older brother.
Oh, you think that was the
Yeah, they showed him at the
brother of
basketball
one of-
courts too, and there was another scene where Edward Furlong was provoking him, and he was there with his brother, and then they were driving around looking for him. That's what gangbangers do. They do drive-bys. I mean, it's
The
and
guy
Well,
who,
As
we
Mark,
really need to defer to Mark. He is from the Bronx.
right.
correct.
the guy who did the shooting, is he somebody who looks so familiar?
I said the same thing, but I didn't look him up. But he did look very familiar.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we? Amy, are you getting racist again?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. That's
so yeah, I would go with the 2.75. It's just not my type of movie. You know, I felt there were some good parts and stuff, but again, I'm never gonna unsee that scene.
And
Sorry.
never watching it again.
I actually
remote
this time when I was watching it, I was like, I'm gonna go fold laundry now, and I'll come back in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
While it was
And you
still
made
running.
me cry.
Well, then
Made me
you
cry last week. Twice.
we're negating your review, Joel. You did not watch the entire movie.
No, I was in the room when it was running. I just wasn't looking at the
You
screen.
could hear it.
Yes, I could hear it.
You could hear the teeth crunching.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the teeth. Yeah.
I probably, like Amy, I probably saw it in 1998 as well. But yeah, no, it's not a good movie. Not a fun movie. Don't need to see it again.
Not a fun
The Laugh
movie.
Riot. What are you talking about?
I would I was not taking notes on how to be a neo-Nazi. So
You already know how.
actually it kind of reminds me of the Black KKK Klansmen, because they show the neo-Nazis, whatever they are, watching Birth of a Nation as a training film.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's
Right.
exactly
And that
what was going. What
Black
I'm imagining was
Klansman-
going on with this.
Black Klansman is a better film.
Well, that's a great movie.
And again, that's an example of Spike Lee.
Right.
That was Spike Lee's best movie for me. I
No.
think I said
I
that
think
during
he,
our
I think
direct
he,
thing.
I think. Well, I know we're going off topic, but I think it just pandered too much to what trying to get comedy in there and stuff. I was like, no. All right, Mark G, this was your selection. Tell us why.
This is not a go-to movie for me at all. It's just I literally put it on because of what you said in the beginning. It was scheduled for last year in 1998, 25-year anniversary, and the week that we were supposed to watch it, we changed it to see movies more relevant. And I felt like we were robbed a little bit because I did think that this is I don't know if I would say important movie, but it is, and as everyone has basically said, it's still way too relevant, unfortunately.
Had
So-
you
so
seen this more than once?
I'd seen this a couple times, yeah.
Ugh.
You're up late at night as a teenager, you're drinking, you're smoking pot, whatever, and let's watch American History X.
Well, the movie came out when I was 23, first of all, and no, this is not one of those Friday night fun movies, as everyone has already said. I've seen it a few times, although it is.
All
funny.
right, Mark, just stand up and show us your swastika.
That's not what I call it.
Oh,
Nice one.
Thank you. No, the part everyone's talking about with the teeth. It's funny because as I guess I've blocked it out too because I've seen it several. I've seen this. I would say several times, but I've seen it a few times, and I thought the camera pulled away. I forget that they actually showed him kicking, and so yeah, not a fun movie, but again important. So for me, I was absolutely mesmerized by Edward Norton, though. This was the first movie I ever saw Edward Norton in. I had no idea who he was at the time. And I was surprised at how scrawny he is in real life afterwards. I thought he was just that built. And by the way, as an aside, I looked up some stuff on it, and I saw that Edward Norton and Schwarzenegger are actually friends in real life, and they met while he was filming this. And so he was, he said to, of course, if you just meet Arnold, you're gonna become friends with him. He told him that he's training for the movie, and do you have any advice for me? And he said, well, you look good, you look very trim. He goes, no, I'm actually trying to put on weight. So Arnold was like, can you go over your workouts with me? And he told him the whole workout plan, and he's like, are you doing 2 a days or just once? He goes, no, just once. And he goes, I'll be honest, that's pretty pussy, Ed. that was Arnold's honest response to his workout. So, but he did. I mean, compared to what he looks like in real life, he did put on some good muscle for the movie. And what's his name? Norton. I would, if I was a director, I would never hire him because he just has a habit of taking over and rewriting and all this stuff. And he is super cocky. However, honestly, in this movie specifically, I found him perfect. I believed him. I believed that he was a skinhead. I believed that he was reformed. He was fantastic. It wasn't acting to me. It was absolutely natural. He was great in this. And Edward Furlong, I know we all gave him shit for Terminator 2, but I thought his narration was all right. But this was his best movie ever done. And as I think Frank said, yeah, afterwards he did kind of go downhill. He's like.
I also said he was perfectly cast.
Yeah, no, you did. Yeah.
I very much think I remember when this movie came out, everybody was like, wow, that's Eddie Furlong. Wow, he really grew.
Yeah. Well, not height wise.
No.
Yeah, as an actor too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
No, he
meant.
did great. Yeah. For me, my nits are some of the family flashbacks are a little bit too melodramatic and just didn't work for me.
Yeah, and I even found them a little awkward at times when Beverly D'Angelo would just bring up a random thing, and that would spark another thing.
Well, even that, as you said, that whole scene where when Elliot Gould there, I mean, I thought it was important for him to, when he shows the swastika and says "not wanted." I thought that was important. That part made sense to the movie, but the whole grabbing his sister and it just went on too long. It was all right. Let's go. So, and also I think the movie gets 5 demerits due to all the penises. It was way too many penises for me. And that was the most frightening part of the movie for me. I'll be honest. For me, it's 3.25. It was again, this is not a fun Friday night movie, but even Annie, I'm sorry that you were traumatized by it, but I did think it was important for us all to watch as movie lovers.
No,
Yeah,
as mature movie lovers, Mark.
As what?
As mature movie lovers.
Mature and
and
sophisticated.
sophisticated. But I'm still a little.
I want to go back to not mature movie lover.
Next week.
Next week,
Yeah, next
Paddington
week,
1 and
man.
2.
Yeah, next week and last week. Yeah, Mark, I'm still amazed that you've seen this more than twice. All right. American History X is on Tubi, whatever that is,
Or not.
or $3.79 from Prime, or the library, which is what I did here. Next week, does anybody have any more comments on American History X? Sorry.
I just one quick thing I was reading.
Sure.
Both Edward Furlong, just so that we're put things in context. Both Edward Furlong and Ethan Suplee had a lot of issues with their characters. They were very uncomfortable, and I guess there's a story that Ethan Suplee actually had forgotten to take off some of his tattoo makeup, and was in a grocery store, and got berated for what he was wearing, and just made him feel even worse. So.
And he was like, "No, I'm an actor. I'm in this.
Exactly.
I'm really
They're
nice.
not mine. They're not mine. I'm just holding them for someone.
But you got to feel bad for the, you got to feel bad for actors who have to deal with stuff like that sometimes. And
Well, and I read Fairuza Balk is Jewish, and she was as neo-Nazi as you can get.
Oh, yeah, she was perfect too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know
What
she was
happened
Jewish.
to her?
Yeah. As soon as I saw her name, I was like, oh, I remember her.
I've heard that name. She
Yeah.
played Dorothy in Journey to Oz. All right.
Return to Oz.
Return to Oz. All right. Next week, Nick Cage is making us watch Paddington and Paddington 2. Because we saw, what was that movie?
The unbearable
Unbearable
kindness of
movie.
being.
Yeah, that. And he watched Paddington 2 in that movie and was crying.
Actually, Pedro Pascal is making us watch it, not Nick Cage.
I'll
That's
do
funny.
almost anything Pedro Pascal asks.
Oh my, for sure. All right, both of which are available on Hoo.
Was that real?
I think I'm having a stroke. Both of which are available on Hulu, not Hoo. Not Hoo. If you subscribe to that streaming service. All right. Or you can rent them. Vudu has them for $3.99. Or library. All right, that's it. I'm Frank Gaffney. Go watch a movie.
And also with you.